Dear God and Heavenly Father, I beseech you this evening for your assistance in guiding this board to make decisions solely motivated by the love for Spotsylvania County and improvement of our quality of life. As elected officials, we seem too often to forget that it is our duty to work closely together in furtherance of our county's future. Please instill in us the sense of cooperation that will guide us towards fulfilling this goal. I would also request that you bless and watch over our citizen participants during this process. I forward this prayer request in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We have the blessing of a short consent agenda this evening, which summarizes as follows. Folks, the 38th annual Spotsylvania County Christmas Parade is upon us. It will be Saturday, the 5th of December at 1 p.m. here at the courthouse. Spectators and parade participants typically number about 3,000 on parade day, and we would love to see a bigger crowd. The Special Events Committee has reviewed the special event permit application and recommends its approval, and that is the first item on your consent agenda. I would also, staff would love to know which among you on the Board of Supervisors will be in attendance on Saturday, December 5th at 1 p.m. for the Christmas parade. The next is the noise ordinance amendment. At this point, we're simply looking for your authorization to advertise for a public hearing. This amendment updates our noise ordinance to include mixed use and village zoning districts and proposes other minor modifications to the ordinance. Staff requests that the board authorize advertisement of the amendment to Chapter 14, Article 11 of the Spotsylvania County Code for public hearing. Next is the first renewal of the lease agreement for the Rappahannock Railroad Museum, Inc. The county and the tenant have entered into a lease back in November 15 of 2010. This lease runs in 5-year terms and is renewable for a total of 10 terms for the Rappahannock Railroad Museum. This is over in the Bowman Center. And this is a routine renewal of that lease. Finally, we are in receipt of a letter of resignation from Mr. Gary Bullis, the Berkeley District Representative on your Planning Commission. In his letter of resignation dated November 22, 2015, Mr. Bullis says in pertinent part, the purpose of this correspondence is to submit my letter of resignation as Spotsylvania County Berkeley District Planning Commissioner effective Tuesday, December 1, 2015. It has been an honor and privilege serving on the commission. I've gained a great deal of respect for the other members and staff who willingly give their time, energy, and wisdom serving the citizens of Spotsylvania County. Far better it is to be in the breach of decision-making than being one of those whose only contribution is to sit on the sidelines and criticize. There are many challenges ahead, and I extend my best wishes and respect for those who will serve the citizens of Spotsylvania County in the years ahead, and that's submitted very respectfully, Gary Bullis. Supervisor Sabula would like to appoint C. Douglas Barnes to the Planning Commission to represent the Berkeley District. That appointment would be effective December 1st, 2015, and that is the last item on your consent agenda this evening.
Thank you. Any items to be pulled?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, with Mr. Skinner not present.
Thank you. Up next, we have public presentations, and this is for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Has anybody signed up, Amy?
Yes, sir. Nanette Colson.
Please come forward, state your name, address, and you will have 3 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me if I bumble around, but I'm a resident in the Ashley Park subdivision, and last Tuesday, I attended the meeting at the community center concerning the, wow, my voice is shaking, the Islamic Center of Fredericksburg. And I've been reading a lot of information in the newspapers and on the news, and it seems that they're just focusing on the hatred that was spewed. And there was a lot, and it was horrible. But as a resident right there, I'm going to be affected because I live right in that subdivision. I just wanted you guys to be aware that the real situation is it is a residential parcel. There's 3 lots there. So that when this comes to you, that you guys remember, don't focus just on the hatred that's been spewed, because not everybody in the community feels that way. If they were trying to build on a commercial property, all for it. But I live right there. It's a very small area. There's a lot of traffic, which people don't want to focus on the traffic. But please remember, it is residential lots. And I don't think that rezoning, I don't think it would be a good idea. I just want you really to focus on the real issue, which is residential lots. It's not, don't focus on the hatred. It's horrible what people are saying. And a lot of us there at the meeting did not support it, did not agree. So I just hope that you guys take that into account if you get the information. So sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other citizens signed up to speak.
Anybody else here wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Mary Lou Collier, Mr. Skinner's district. I'm going to talk about numbers tonight and not the book of Numbers in the Bible. But first off, I was at the railroad dedication ceremony, and I brought to attention of several people that the parking spaces did not have numbers. So hopefully you had to remember where you parked. And I hope that that problem will be rectified and that they will put numbers up on the banner post or on the ground so people can know where they're parking their vehicle, because they can't always park at the same spot every single day. 2, numbers. A couple meetings back, though, there was an issue of not knowing what the school attendance was. And this was shortly after the new school year. And I just thought it was kind of unsettling to me to not be able to tell that nobody knew what the exact numbers of the school attendance was, and that it would take 2 weeks or more to get a final count. That's interesting because in several past meetings we talk about, do we need schools, we don't need schools, we don't need to build until 2020, and then all of a sudden we find out at another meeting that certain schools are over attendance. So I don't know if it's which way the wind is blowing, or if it's an odd or even day, you get a different interpretation. But numbers are something that I hope that all of you will dissect when you get numbers, whatever it may be. Ask questions, as Mr. McLaughlin is very good at doing. Don't always take the first number as the gospel truth. They need to be dissected, and ask how you got those numbers. And when were those numbers last updated, and what kind of tracking is being done on those numbers, whether it be housing or whether it be population or school attendance or whatever. Pay more attention to numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on an item that's not on the agenda tonight? Seeing nobody else rise, we'll move along to the public hearings. And first up, we have the pre-budget public hearing presented by the finance staff.
Good evening. May I please have the floor computer? The first public item meeting related to any budget is always our pre-budget public hearing, and so tonight is the kickoff, if you will, for our fiscal year 17 budget process. And the pre-budget public hearing is really meant to obtain comments from citizens on what they'd like to see as we begin the development of the fiscal year 17 budget. and also for staff to hear from the board what they'd like to be considered in preparing the budget. We do have a number of known changes that will happen for the fiscal year 17 budget, and those are listed here. Full year funding in fiscal year 17 for the partial year staffing that occurred for Company 11 in fiscal year 16. In fiscal year 16, we budgeted 4 months of those positions, and we will need to budget 12 months in fiscal year 17 and going forward. That cost is estimated at around $400,000. There will also need to be a source of revenue to fund 9 firefighter medic positions that have previously been funded by a grant, which is expiring, and that will cost local dollars of around $616,000. Fiscal year 17 is also the final year of the 5-year transition, VRS transition, where employees will pick up the full 5% employee share. Along with that, the state required that as localities shifted that responsibility to the employee, that the employer also provided an offsetting salary increase. That net is about a $100,000 increase in the fiscal year 17 local cost. The debt service addition to the general fund based on the CIP, the projects in the CIP that you will look at adopting later on this evening, is an addition of $1.4 million. And then on the transportation side, the debt service increase is about $880,000. And of course, as always, we will look towards maintaining our county's fiscal policies. Staff's perceived priorities for the fiscal year 17 budget are school resource officers, whether those are funded as part of the school's budget or as part of the county's public safety budget. That's yet to be determined, but we perceive one of your priorities to be school resource officers. Also, the funding of critical service staffing in the Department of Social Services and the Comprehensive Services Act, particularly in DSS related to eligibility workers and child protective service workers based on the workload and surely the amount of time that those cases take. Also, critical operational staffing in the finance and information services departments. The county administrator will be looking at that more as we move forward in developing his recommended budget, but I believe that those are critical areas that he's going to be focusing on. Also, at this point in time, there are many, many unknowns about this budget. We're still very much in the development phase, even preparing the initial information to share with the county administrator. But unknowns that we know about at this time are there will be changes. I don't know if it's going to be an increase or a decrease in health insurance premiums. If history is any indicator, it will be an increase. But there will be some sort of change there. We do not know yet the impact of the reassessment. We will begin meetings with the Assessment and Commissioner of Revenue's office in early December, and have better information as we move forward in the process. Regional detention center increases, we do believe that there will be an increase in the jail and perhaps also in the juvenile center. We do not know the impact of state funding. The governor's budget will be presented to the General Assembly on December 17th, so we really won't have any gauge of that until that date. We do not know the state legislative position that will be taken on school resource officer funding. I know that was one of the items on your legislative agenda list, and so we'll be watching the General Assembly and see what action they take towards funding those. Also, revenue projections, we have not done those yet for fiscal year 2017, but we'll be working on those actually next week. In terms of good news, we did hear late last week that the VRS rate is expected to decrease by about 1%. So that's a help to our budget for sure. Next steps in the budget development process, actually departments submitted their budget requests on November 6th, and as I said, we're still working through that. January 19th, the superintendent will present his recommended budget to the school board, and then February 9th, the county administrator will recommend his budget to you all. On February 16th, there will be both a presentation from the schools on their budget to the board and a presentation by the Citizen Budget Review Committee to the board. Following that, on February 23rd, the board will need to make a decision on the tax rates to be advertised, And then in March and April, we'll have a series of budget work sessions, as we usually do. March 31st is the budget and tax rate public hearing at Cortland High School. That'll be at 6:30. And then finally, on April 12th, is the approval of the fiscal year 17 budget and the 2016 tax rates. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions you have, and following those responses, ask you to open the public hearing.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing open. Has anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, sir. The first speaker is Terry Fabricatori, followed by Purview J. Diller Jr. Terry Fabricatori, Purview J. Diller Jr., Tom Howyer.
Good evening. I'm Purview James Dillett Jr. I reside in Lancaster Gate, and I know it was before the board about the new subdivision or community that's going to be built near our subdivision, about a road connecting to it.
Right.
I oppose that. I just wanted to.
Okay. That public hearing's up next. This is just on the presentation that was just put forward. If you signed up on the wrong one, that's fine. Just at the end of everybody that has signed up, I'll call for people, and if you want to come back up and speak about that issue, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Anybody else here? Anybody else sign up, Amy?
Tom Howyer. Lena Henderson. Lena Henderson. Okay, that's
On
the
the
last
other one?
citizen.
Okay. So does anybody want to speak on this issue? Seeing nobody rise, declare the public hearing closed.
Is that it? Okay, thank you.
Is that all? Okay. Seeing no questions. Thank you very much.
And next, Mr. Chairman, will be the public hearing on R140012, Walton VA LLC, and WUSF 5, Alexander Station LLC, which is Alexander's Crossing, which is in the Berkeley and Lee Hill voting districts.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As the county administrator stated, this is an application requesting rezoning of 701 acres from industrial 1 to rural, and rural to mixed use 3 and mixed use 4. The proposal is for 2,607 residential units with potential mix of 1,201 single-family attached units, 518 single-family detached units, and 1,118 multifamily units with the potential for 230 senior living units. And the request also includes 1.5 million square feet of commercial space that include office, light industrial, retail, and a hotel. The county requires that the public hearings be, that the board take action on public hearings within 1 year of the case being deemed complete, unless the applicant agrees to an extension. And this case was deemed complete November 25th, 2014, and the applicant has agreed to allow the board's decision to continue until December 8th. This is an aerial view of the subject parcels outlined in red. The property is located between Interstate 95 and the Massaponax Church Road, Route 608. The project is located, north and west of the Lancaster Gate subdivision and south of Hospital Boulevard and Northeast Drive and Cosner's Drive to the north. The Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center is to the north in this general area here. And the Cosner Industrial Park is to the north also in this area here. The Lancaster Gate subdivision, also accessed via Massaponax Church Road, is in this general area here. Lancaster Gate has 501 homes adjacent to the subject parcels. Interstate 95 is on the west boundary, and the recently rezoned Jackson Village is across I-95 in this general area here. This is a zoning map of the area with the subject parcels again outlined in red. Note The northern portion of the subject property is zoned Industrial 1 and 2. The current zoning on the southern parcels in the requested area is zoned RU, rural. The hospital property is zoned Commercial 3 here, and the Cosner Industrial Park is zoned Industrial 1. The majority of the land adjacent to the subject parcels is zoned RU. There's some Industrial 2 zone land south of the subject parcels. The proposed GDP for the project has land bays and uses that are arranged to complement the existing zoning and uses in the area. The proposed mixed-use zoning accommodates residential, light industrial, office, and commercial uses. The total acreage currently zoned RU is 329 acres, while the industrial area to be rezoned is 372 acres. This is a page from the applicant's generalized development plan that identifies 16 land bays that will be developed in 8 phases. The applicant has noted that the project will develop from the south, being Massaponax Church Road, and with the first phase identified as Area M, a 207-acre area to be zoned MU3. Phase 1 is identified as the area west of the main entrance road in this general area here. Continuing northeast, going this way, Land Bay M continues as Phase 2 to what will be an extension of Cosner's Drive in this area here. Land Bay N is 15 acres and will be north of that extension and is also included in Phase 2. These land bays are to develop with a mix of single-family attached, single-family detached, and multifamily units. The access to these areas will be from Massaponax Church Road via a residential parkway, which is a 4-lane divided road that will continue north to the traffic circle to the proposed Route 17 connector, and that's this road connecting to this road here. Land Bay K, excuse me, here is to be zoned MU4 and is a 10-acre parcel to be dedicated to the county for civic uses. The applicant has proffered that this land will be dedicated to the county when the adjacent roads are open for public use. The proffer states that the property may be used for recreation, cultural, educational, job training, and other civic uses. The applicant has provided an appraisal that valued this dedication at $4.1 million. Land bays J and L, here in the center, are identified as Phase 3 of the proposal and are 6 and 16 acres respectively. These areas are proposed to develop with a mix of residential uses that includes single-family attached, detached, and multifamily uses. Land bays I and J, or G, are identified as Phase 4. They are 32 acres identified to develop with single-family attached units. Land bays E and E2 here are identified as Phase 5 and noted for single-family units. Land Bay H is also in Phase 5 and is 18 acres identified to develop with retail uses, and that is the pink area here. Land Bay F, which is 9 acres, is identified as Phase 6, would be developed with senior living units, and this may include assisted living, independent living, nursing home, or memory care units. Land bays B, C, and D here, adjacent to 95, total 53 acres and are noted as Phase 7. Land bays B and D are proposed to develop as office uses. Land bay C is proposed to develop with a hotel. This area of the project is where the bridge over I-95 would be constructed to connect to Jackson Village. The GDP shows 2 potential points for the bridge connection. The final location will be determined by a bridge study that has been proffered by the applicant. The applicant's proffers trigger dedication and construction of a 4-lane road prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy for the 1,500 residential unit or completion of 750,000 square feet of commercial space. The proffers also note that if the county wants to construct the bridge prior to the triggers, the applicant will dedicate the land for the 4-lane road. Staff is working with the applicant to develop the triggers a little bit more clearly in the proffer statement. Land Bay A is 12 acres and is Phase 8 here. and is noted to develop as light industrial uses. This area will be accessed from an extension of Leonard Drive through the Cosner Industrial Park. The GDP notes the project will have 7 access points with a possible 8th, identified with the red arrows on the screen. 3 access points to Massaponax Church Road with the potential for an additional access point down here on Massaponax Church Road. Right now, you see the GDP does not show an access point there, but the applicant's property extends to Massaponax Church Road in that area, and that could be a potential 8th, a potential connection point. One access point to Cosner Drive, one access point connecting to Hospital Boulevard, and one primary access point connecting to Leonard Drive, with one access point connecting to the proposed I-95 bridge crossing also in this area here. The GDP also identifies 2 interparcel access points, one at parcel 36A44, which is here, which would be hopefully a continuation of the Route 17 connector north, and then the other interparcel connector here into the Lancaster Gate subdivision that is a platted access point. The project is to develop from the south, as I noted, with the road network being constructed as the project develops. The applicant proffers that prior to the issuance of a building permit for the 751st unit, residential unit, they will complete the construction of the Route 17 connector road at its intersection with the proposed extension of Hospital Boulevard and extending to the common property line with parcel 36A44. And prior to the issuance of a building permit for the 1501st residential unit, the applicant will complete construction of the Hospital Boulevard extension. So the first trigger is essentially this leg of the road here, and then the second would be the extension of Hospital Boulevard connecting to the north here. The green area noted on the GDP represents 159 acres of green space. There are 20 acres of wetlands on the site. The GDP also notes a buffers that range from 35 to 300 feet along the boundary of the property. It is 35 feet adjacent to the Lancaster Gate subdivision, so this buffer here is essentially a 35-foot green space adjacent to the Lancaster Gate subdivision. A 20-foot tree buffer along Massaponax Church Road at the main entrances, and a minimum of a 35-foot tree buffer along Interstate I-95. This slide shows the proposed road network of the project. The blue roads are neighborhood streets. The yellow are residential parkways, which are 4-lane divided streets with 90 feet of right-of-way. The orange represent commercial regional parkways, which would be 4-lane divided with 100 feet of right-of-way. And the green represent commercial collector streets, which would be 2 lanes with 50 feet of right-of-way. There are 12.5 miles of roads depicted on this GDP, and the blue dashed lines represent hard surface trails, and the yellow dashed line represents soft surface trails, and those trails total 6.9 miles. The transportation proffers include improvements at the access points to include left and right turn lanes, the extension of Hospital Boulevard, and the construction of the Route 17 connector road. The GDP proffers road specifications for the neighborhood streets, 2 lanes with sidewalks, the residential parkways, 4-lane divided with sidewalks, and the commercial parkways, 4-lane divided with 100 feet of right-of-way. The transportation proffers also include the dedication and construction of the 4-lane road to the future bridge over I-95 prior to completion of any of the following, or whichever occurs first. 1, the county's issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the 1,500 residential units within the project, or 2, the county issuance of a certificate of occupancy for at least 750,000 square feet of commercial space within the project, or 3, upon Jackson Village across 95, meeting at least one of its trigger requirements under Section 3G of that rezoning. If the triggers have not been met and the county wishes to proceed, the applicant has proffered to the dedication of land for the construction of the road, and these improvements warranted credit towards our proffer policy. This is the capital facilities impact slide. The table represents the schools and fire services first response zones that will serve the proposed development. The area will be served by stations 4 and 8, and when station 11 is complete, it will provide support to this area. The schools that currently serve the area are Riverview Elementary, Thornburg Middle, and Massaponax High School. With the current attendance boundaries at full build-out, these schools would be above capacity. The total number of students would be 1,111 generated from the project. The capital facility impacts continued. The county's estimated proffer impact is $51,245,000. The applicant's contribution towards these impacts is $41 million, a difference of $9 million. We did give the project credit for the transportation improvements, the trail network, and a proposed, just those two items, the transportation network and the trail network. The fiscal and economic impact, staff ran the model with the mix of uses and noted in the GDP, and the project produced an annual fiscal benefit of $2 million. Since there is no commitment to the commercial uses, we also ran the model with only residential uses. This scenario also provided a positive benefit. In the purely residential scenario, the project offsets the capital facility impacts in 11 years. We used Lafayette Crossings, Pelham's Reserve, the estates at Lee's Park, and Lee's Park for the average of $337,466 for the residential units. And for the townhome units, we used Lafayette Crossing with a value of $212,000. The model output noted that this project would produce 5,252 jobs with an average salary of $42,000 and an annual benefit of $9 million in economic benefit. This economic benefit does not accrue directly to Spotsylvania County, but does reflect on the region. The applicant provided a fiscal impact analysis for the project, which concluded that the project would be fiscally positive by $4.1 million annually at build-out. And we note in previous cases, the staff's model and the applicant's model is a little different because of the inputs that the applicant's model uses. The applicant's model also projected that the salaries of the residents would be, for the single-family attached units, about $78,000 a year. The multifamily salaries would be about $60,000 a year, and the single-family detached would be at $110,000 a year. The applicant's proffers limit the number of residential units to no more than 2,607. With limits placed on each type of unit, there will be no more than 1,118 multifamily, 1,201 single-family attached units, or 518 single-family detached, with no greater than 230 senior living units. The proffers also note a maximum of 1.5 million square feet of commercial development. It should be noted, as I said earlier, there is no commitment to the construction of a minimum amount of commercial space. The applicant in this case is proposing triggers for the construction of road infrastructure rather than commercial space. It's the applicant's position that given the size and number of years to build out the project, that a binding commitment to commercial space may limit the ability of the project to reach density levels that would support a proffered commercial commitment. This is different than prior mixed-use cases that have had a commitment to some portion of the proposed commercial uses. This is raised in a policy question in the staff report. The applicant has also proffered to extend a 16-inch water main from Hospital Boulevard and an 8-inch water main in Cosner Drive to the project. Staff acknowledge the cost of these extensions, but do not give them credit as they are not credible items according to the proffer policy. The applicant has proffered open space totaling 159 acres as identified on the GDP, the dedication of right-of-way, the construction of 3 transit stops, off-site improvements at the entrances to the project, $40,000 for a bridge alignment study, recreation amenities to include a trail system that totals 6.9 miles, hard and soft surfaces, picnic areas, and pavilions. The amenities in the multi-family areas, a 2,000 square foot clubhouse with a 15-meter pool and play courts. The amenities in the single-family detached area would include a 2,000 square foot clubhouse and a 25-meter pool with multi-use courts. The project will have a minimum of 3 tot lots equipped with multi-function equipment. Cash proffers, the applicant is proffering cash of $1,000 per multifamily unit, or $1,118,000, with a maximum number of 1,118 units for single family. Is offering $2,000 per unit, with a maximum number of 1,200 units, and the amount for single family detached is $10,000 per unit. The applicant is also offering cash in the amount of $500,000 towards law enforcement, $875,000 towards regional transit, and an additional $1.3 million for schools, and $600,000 for fire services. The applicant's total proffer contribution is valued at $41,390,000. This includes credits and the cash contributions. Key findings: on balance, the project is consistent with the comp plan. The project is one component of a larger mixed-use area as identified in the comprehensive plan, divided by Interstate 95. Jackson Village set the stage for the bridge crossing over the interstate to connect the mixed-use areas on each side of the interstate and provide alternative transportation routes. The 2,607 unit project proposes a mix of housing types that will provide housing opportunities and choices in Spotsylvania. The project is expected to develop over a 19-year period. The project integrates recreational amenities that will afford citizens recreation options in the community. The project design accommodates and is sensitive to the environmental features on the property. It should be noted, though, that the project does not mitigate impacts of the capital facilities per the adopted policy. While the project can accommodate 1.5 million square feet of non-residential uses, there is no commitment to that 1.5 million square feet. At build-out, with the mix of uses anticipated, the project is expected to have a positive fiscal benefit that would offset the unmitigated capital facilities impacts within the board's 30-year policy. It should be noted that during the initial years, with only the residential development, there may be a negative impact on capital facilities. The project will have significant impacts on the transportation network. The positive impact of the development is the 12.5 miles of new road construction that is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the county's transportation goals. And the negative is that the project will have also impacts beyond the boundaries of the project on the transportation network. The project at full build-out will have an impact on schools, increasing the students above the level of capacity at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high. And it should be noted, in terms of the transportation network, this project is a key component to providing transportation infrastructure in that portion of the county, ultimately with some plans that the county is working on now. The extension of Hospital Boulevard down to Massaponax Church Road, and ultimately the extension of Spotsylvania Avenue North. This project would provide an alternative north-south route from, say, Spotsylvania Avenue, where it terminates now at the old Capital One facility, extending south to Route 17, and then further south along Hospital Boulevard down to Massaponax Church Road, and then the bridge connection over to Jackson Village and ultimately out to Route 1. So it would hopefully provide, like I said, that alternative route for north-south local traffic to get off of Route 1. From a land use perspective, staff supports the application. However, there are some outstanding issues related to the language in the proffer statement, not substantive, but I think some issues that need to be worked out for clarity's sake. Therefore, staff recommends that the request be tabled with the public hearing left open to allow the applicant to address outstanding issues with the proffer statement. The applicant today submitted a revised document, but staff has not completed a review of that document to ensure that it has met the requested changes of staff. We have received two letters of support for the application, and we've received a number of calls from citizens expressing concern about the connection to the Lancaster Gate subdivision. This concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Mr. Ross.
So, a question about the bridge. I understand that Jackson Village is set up for the bridge across I-95, and Alexander Crossing would be too. So who actually would pay for that bridge, and it is something that the county is prepared to do?
Well, the proffer money from the project would pay for the bridge.
It would pay for that bridge?
Yes. And
completely is, okay. But it would not come until complete build-out? Or is there a plan, is there a time frame inside the project that the bridge would be paid for? Halfway through?
It's kind of difficult to answer
Sure,
that question
it
based
is.
on the level of development. But the way it's set up, the proffer dollars that are being contributed would cover the cost of the bridge, as the applicants are providing on both sides, providing the infrastructure to lead to the bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Hyde.
on your slide on fiscal and economic impact, the one-time benefits, the economic activity, is that an error of 904,448,393? Is that the actual figure?
Yes, that's what the model projected, yes. And those are region-wide impacts.
Regional-wide, okay.
Yes.
And also, and when I look at this, it appears right now that the sort of you have the Massaponack Church Road ingress and egress, but also just the Cosner Drive out to 17.
Cosner Drive and also the extension of Hospital Boulevard.
Oh, okay. So that'll give another outlet further down.
Yes, ma'am.
The one would assume if they're going to the VRE station, they would take Cosner.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because I've been in that area and it is 4 lanes. Are they going to complete it through there then? Because I think it sort of ends. Maybe it doesn't. I don't.
You speaking of
remember.
Cosner?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Cosner Drive, may I have the floor computer, please? Cosner Drive is expected to, it terminates here now, and they would extend it into the project over to Massaponack Church Road.
Okay, and then you had shown sort of where the red line comes up, another possible connector, but I assume they don't own that property and there's nothing specific.
Here?
No, the other north, over to the right, past Cosner Drive. Up, you went past it, the red,
Here?
right there, where it tees into the green.
Yes, the applicant owns all of this property.
No, on the other side.
Oh, no, here, yes, I'm sorry. The interparcel connection, yes.
Right.
Yes, they do not own that.
Okay, they don't own that, so that's maybe something in the future.
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not creating any sort of traffic buildups anywhere.
In
That
our
we have enough
comprehend-
in and out.
Right. In our comprehensive plan, there's in the thoroughfare plan, there was a design that showed a 17 connector road in this general area. And so this development would do this leg of that project. It was noted, there was an interchange at one point identified that was going to occur here on Interstate 95. Coming off of that interchange, it would extend east and then north to Route 17.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Any other
Chair.
questions? Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, quick one, and maybe, this might be for the applicant, but I guess the question, talked about phasing of, or 750 homes. When is the first connection off of Massaponack Church Road? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm clear, 750 homes before there's another connection other than Massaponack Church Road?
Well, it would depend on, you could have potentially 2 connections there, but in their first phases, those connections would be on Massaponack Church Road at potentially 3 different locations.
So when is the first opportunity that we would create connections to benefit really everybody, to include Lancaster Gate, that would connect up to Hospital Boulevard and as well as Cosner Drive and to the bridge?
That would be after that 750 first unit.
That's the first opportunity after?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? I have a couple. Back on the map that you had shown, the one that you had stayed on for a while, that showed the different pods, that one. And you said all the green was green space. Does that include the roads? We're not including roads as green space, are we?
No, no.
Okay, okay. That, I just want to clarify that, because I saw that and I thought that was quite silly. The land donation is 10 acres and a little bit more, correct, for Civic, number K there on your map?
Yes.
Is that 10 acres? I thought I read in the proffers there's 10,
Yes.
like 10.29, I do believe. And they're valuing that at roughly 6 million?
No, one thing I omitted, Mr. Chair, was there's also a 5-acre land dedication in this area right here in O that would come to the county as well. So the total land dedication to the county would be 15 acres, and they value those 2 dedications at 6 million.
Oh, the combined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that is valued at the rezoned land price, not the current zone land price?
That is correct.
Okay. So we're going to be receiving a proffer for the higher value, not the current value. Okay. The other question I had about transportation and road improvements, when you look at this, how much of this and how do you calculate how much of the road network that is going to be put in is necessary for the project without any benefit in the larger region area? For example, when I know Lee's Park was put in and the road was done for roughly $29 million. I don't recall how much of that they would have had to done anyway. So the proffer should be taking that baseline of what they have to do anyway, regardless, and then you add on and above that. Is the county calculate that? And if so, can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, I can't say we calculated it in those terms, but I think to answer the question about what would be needed for their project, all of the residential streets that you see here in the first couple phases would be purely to the benefit of their project. It's not until you get the extension of the Route 17 connector road and then ultimately up to Hospital Boulevard and then the road that would extend across 95 to make a connection to Jackson Village that you start to receive benefits of the road network for the greater public.
Right, but so my question would be that Hospital Boulevard Extension Road, if they wanted to dead end it and not connect it anyway, it would have to be part of their GDP anyway, perhaps not as big and as wide and as pretty as it will be. So do we take the full value of that road, because that road also benefits them regardless of whether or not it needs to be as large, and take the value above and beyond what needed to be there to begin with?
I think in this instance, we gave them credit for the full value.
Okay. And then my other question I have about the bridge and the connection to Jackson Village, and this would go to the Jackson Village proffers. So if you don't have this handy, I completely understand. If that were not to, if this project were not to have come forward and not to materialize for whatever reason, does that proffer for Jackson Village go away? Do we get cash for a bridge that is not necessary at that point?
We would still get the cash from the Jackson Village proffer, yes.
So there will be cash that would come to the county?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not build the bridge or nothing from their proffers?
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, sir.
Just to follow up on it, the way that proffers are structured here for transportation, that cash can also be used at the board's discretion as well, so.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing nobody else, would invite the applicant up.
Mr. Chairman and other members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is Charlie Payne with the law firm Herschel Fleischer, and we represent the applicant. I want to thank you for their time this evening. I want to thank staff for its diligence and its time in this presentation. I wish you all happy Thanksgiving. It goes without saying that this is a large project. It includes 701 acres. It's accumulation of property within your mixed-use future land use plan. It includes a significant corporate and industrial footprint, probably one of the largest in the county that's ever been planned, certainly in this particular area of the county. It includes over 1.3 million square feet of office and industrial space. It includes a 110-room hotel. It includes a 145,000 square foot retail footprint. I want to thank Leon for giving us additional 460 units. I think there's a little confusion in the calculation there. We have a base of 888 multifamily, 911 townhouses, 518 single-family detached, and 230 age-restricted, for a total of 2607. The age-restricted can be converted to townhouses or to multifamily, but I can't get the double number. I can only go to, they can only add 230 to either one, so it's not as many necessarily as presented, but the cap is at 2607. We certainly foresee the 230 age-restricted units being marketable in that particular area near the hospital. Again, this is envisioned as a 21st century employment, work, live environment. Many times we talk about in this community attracting large employers to our community, get folks off the road, perhaps get a reverse commute on VRE, utilize the VRE station and investments that we have in our community, including the hospital in Germanna, to support and sustain our local economy, including the commercial enterprises at Cosner's Corner and the Massaponax area. This is a project that can do that. It's also a project that's going to take a very, very long time to build out, likely a scenario of 20 years. If you just look at the current growth rates in the county today, for over the past 4 years and 10 months, there's been under 1,500 occupancy permits issued in the county. It's about 300 plus a year. The county grew about 0.9% last year. Many of those occupancy permits that were issued from projects approved 12, 13, 15 years ago and were rezoned. About half of that number were by right units. So I just want to take into perspective where we are and what this project is. It is a long-term planned project to encourage sustainable economic growth in the county. Our cash proffers, largest proffer package I'm sure this county has seen at $41.5 million in kind and cash combined, includes $22 million in road improvements. And I heard some questions regarding credits for roads in our proffer package. Just to make it clear, the Parkway, the Route 17 connector, the bridge connection, the Hospital Boulevard connection would not be required for our project. Those are proffers that we've provided that benefit, in fairness, our project and the overall community. We did not get 100% credit for the 4-lane parkway that's being extended from Hospital Boulevard, or the 4-lane parkway that's being extended from the Route 17 connector, or full credit for the bridge. So I just want to make that very clear that folks understand that these proffers aren't necessarily just the benefit of this project. Proffers also include $8.47 million in cash for roads and or schools. That number for roads could go up to $9.58 million and for schools up to $9.8 million. We've also proffered $200,000 for an off-site park and ride facility, $500,000 for law enforcement, $600,000 in cash for fire department, and $40,000 for a bridge crossing study. In regards to by right development, this is always a question that's asked. Of course, there is some industrial zone properties here. This project actually generates 20% less traffic, and it has proffers, and it builds roads. If it was done by right, you wouldn't get any cash proffers, you wouldn't necessarily get any new roads, and you'd have 20% more traffic generated out of that site, mostly on Cosner's Drive and Massaponax Church Road. The fiscal impact that was done by George Mason University estimates that annually at full build-out, this project will generate $4.15 million in net tax revenue for the county. A significant economic development project. Have close to $1 billion investment, will create 6,300 jobs. The total outlay for construction will be over $600 million. It will generate estimated dollars for purposes of local spending of $75.1 million. So the developments, the commercial developments that are close by, retail especially, that have been struggling over the past 5 years, will have support from this project. The staff has concluded a somewhat more conservative number per year, about $2.3 million, which is still quite a bit of money. But they also have stated that just the residential alone would generate annually at full build-out $886,000 annually. That's a positive project from a residential side, which is unique to some prior projects in the county. So this project pays for itself, even if we don't build 1 square foot of commercial space. Again, as we had discussed, the project also will include 6.9 miles of trails. It won't be dedicated to the county. It'll be open to the public, maintained and paid for by the applicant or the HOA. The development also will include commitment to modern technologies and broadband, and a dedication of public land at 15.29 acres. Now, when we do the appraisal, it is for the highest and best use of the property. The property is planned for high density mixed use. That is simply the fair way, the equitable way to evaluate properties in this particular area, and is obviously certified by our appraiser. Project also includes, which we did not get credit for, $110,000 in total, 3 transit stops it will construct. It will also include expansion of utilities and improvement of utilities of well over $600,000. Transportation in this particular area, if Mr. Hughes, I could have you pull up our slide. As you can see here, here's the grid, the transportation grid network that we're looking to create. And what this does is, one, alleviate a couple of issues. One, as many of you know, the Jackson Gateway interchange, which would have played a role in addressing the problems that we have today at Massaponax interchange, is off the table. VDOT has taken it off the table, is not affordable. But we need a southern bridge crossing in order to alleviate the traffic going north, keep traffic away from 1 and 17 the best that we can. What this project does is it opens up an east-west connector that we don't have south of the Massaponax interchange, other than the intersection of 1 and 17. This will open that up, will benefit, we think, the properties to our north in regards to the hospital. It will benefit properties to our east in regards to VRE, and it would benefit the overall transportation network in this particular area. As you can see, we are creating not only an east-west grid, but also a north-south grid connecting Hospital Boulevard from our site and running the eventual Route 17 connector to the Cosner Drive as well as to Massaponax Church Road. Again, we believe a significant mitigation to the regional traffic issues that we have, that obviously this project has not caused today, but will play a role in resolving in the future, in addition to its cash proffers and other investments. Schools, as staff has noted, this project will generate, even with 2,600 units, about 1,111 school-age children. Again, if you're looking at a project that builds over 19 to 20 years, or even a more aggressive approach at 15 years, you're only looking at about 65, 74 kids per year. The school system, as many of you may or may not know, is obviously in last year's fiscal analysis is not even looking to build a new school until 2023, and that is to improve and expand a current high school. And no plans to build an elementary school. Last year was the first year in 2014, I believe, that the school system had an increase in student population. Again, we think that this project, given its long-term growth and development requirements, will have minimal impact on schools. Just in closing, this project is a future economic development model for our county and for our region. It will be a 21st century employment center. We think it has an opportunity to attract a large commercial office employer. As you can see in our plan includes 911,000 square feet of office alone, over 340,000 square feet of industrial, and a 110-room hotel to serve our corporate center. So we really have a great extensive focus on employment center activity here. We want it to be a work-live environment. We want folks off the road. We want them to stay on site. We want to attract folks to our site. And in essence, try to reverse the commute and sustain the economy here and keep the jobs in Spotsylvania County. Further, just to follow up in closing here, again, we'll provide support for our regional pillars in the area, including the Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center, Spotsylvania Community College, and VRE. This project will generate 6,300 jobs as anticipated, be a 20% less reduction in traffic, again, with proffers. and new roads, 12.2 miles that will be constructed to address the transportation grid in this area. And all in, we have stated the proffers are $41.5 million. We do believe that we're playing a role in resolving the regional infrastructure challenges that are here before us today. We're providing significant cash proffers for schools, law enforcement, and fire department, and we believe the dedicated uses will benefit the county in the long term. We've also provided public recreational systems with our 6.9 miles of bike and trail system. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. McLaughlin.
I've got a couple that really go, some of the road network. So the question that came up earlier was that there's no connection other than Massaponax Church Road until when?
Well, the proffers say that we will phase our infrastructure versus tying residential units, which have been sort of the past model, to just commercial space. We thought, certainly in sort of other projects that have come before the board, but the county is really focusing on its infrastructure. So the project as phased will be for the south part of phase one, and the first access points will be on Massaponax Church Road. Now, as the project evolves, it will connect to Cosner's Drive, which is a 4-lane road. And then what we're saying is that no later than the 750th unit would we then connect the Route 17 connector, and then at the 1500th unit we would connect to the extension of Hospital Boulevard. Now, going to the bridge, we have the same connection requirements, unless Jackson Village hits its triggers first. So what we're trying to do is create the transportation network in a manner how we believe the project will build out. If the corporate component takes off first, the Hospital Boulevard connection, again, tying it to square feet, will drive, the commercial footprint will drive what that transportation extension will be at that point in time.
So I guess the one question, looking at the map that's up there now, why not just connect to Cosner's right off the bat? That would take more traffic off of Massaponax and then drive it to Mills, or I believe there's a light at Cosner, isn't there? Cosner and 17? Wouldn't that help to bring the traffic straight up? I guess there's one question. Is that an opportunity or an option to look at that earlier in this project as opposed to connecting to Massaponax?
Well, the market's going to drive that. It depends on what product is sold first or is marketed first, so it very well could be. If the townhouse product is the product that kicks off first, it will have that Kaiser's connection. If it's the more southern connection, and depending, again, how quickly that builds out, that's going to be the Massaponax Church Road connection. And just on the Lancaster Gate connection, I'm sure many of you know this, there's dedicated right-of-way from the Lancaster Gate development that requires us to connect. I think if you look at in county policy for us to have interparcel connections, I think if you look at Lancaster Gate, it's not going to be attractive for our folks to drive through or wind through Lancaster Gate to get to Massaponax Church Road. We've got main entrances on Massaponax, straight shot to Massaponax Church Road with no need to go through Lancaster Gate. We hope if Lancaster Gate obviously comes our way into the development, they will benefit from the immediate retail that'll be in that area, hopefully an Anchor Grocery and other that will immediately serve their community.
And the other question was, I think Leon mentioned something about no commitment for commercial. What was that?
Well, what has happened in the past has been the phasing has been tied to commercial. We tied it to infrastructure because we thought that would be the priority in regards to how the phasing would evolve out. So our GDP does have commercial footprint in it. We can't build residential where the commercial is located. So that commercial is proffered in those locations. But what we did was we tied the phasing instead to, you build 30,000 square feet before you get to X number of units. We tied it to infrastructure instead.
So I guess, so you are building the infrastructure that it's nearest the commercial?
Yes.
Immediately?
Well, it's going to be, again, it's going to evolve from, how the phases are developed out. So when you say immediately, again, the plan is for it to develop from south to northwest.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Chair.
Thank you, sir. With that, declare the public hearing open. Has anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, sir. The first citizen signed up to speak is Raymond Burns, followed by Linda Tranter.
Please come forward, state your name, address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity. Raymond Burns, 6311 West Drainsville in the Battlefield District. Just say no, our county deserves a better deal. But then we deserve better deals on many of the past 17 developments that have been approved. By my math, Walton owes $52.6 million in cash proffers and wants to pony up $23.6. That's a $29 million shortfall, and I'm using the new and improved and reduced proffer guidelines that you recently approved. Their in-kind proffer for the 15 acres for civic use purposes comes in at a whopping $6.3 million. Now that's $418,000 an acre. How can anyone keep a straight face when that sort of number is bandied about in public? But then you were sold on roughly the same in-kind deal when you approved Jackson Village. The average price of an acre around here has been going for about $27,500. Thus, this portion of their proposal has an actual land value of about $420,000 for the entire 15-acre parcels, not $418,000 for each of the 15 acres. Their land value is overstated by some $5.9 million. I'm the guy who wrote the opinion piece in the Freelance Star this morning, and it served as a counterpoint to Attorney Payne's article on the benefits of this development. I guess in Mr. Sabula's eyes, this makes me one of the enemy, but I think we can all agree to disagree on the vision for our county. I ask, how much growth is enough? What is our desired end state? And developers do want somebody else to pay for the I-95 bridge connecting Alexander's Crossing and Jackson's Village. And guess who will pick up any of the tab for the proposed interconnector that goes from Gordon Road to Smith Station to Spotsylvania Parkway in the long-term plan? The same Stuckey as usual, the taxpayer. And make no bones about it, in the proffer, it says in the language, the bridge will be paid for by other people, and we're basing this estimate on a 19 to 20-year build-out and then the 30-year rule. And the downside is we're all going to be dead and buried in 2060 or 2065, and nobody's going to be around to grade out the homework. This proposal in the current form is bad for the county. I would like to see it deep-sixed entirely, but it certainly needs to be enhanced in the proffer area. I thank you all for your service to the county. It must be easy running things with 129,000 duty experts telling you how to do it. And a fond farewell and many thanks to you, Ann, on your departure. Thank you.
Linda Tranter, followed by Rodea Davis.
Good evening. I'm Linda Tranter. I am the president of the Lancaster Gate Homeowners Association. I'm here tonight to speak about concerns we have with Alexander's Crossing and that proposed entrance within our subdivision. I heard their lawyer say that their people wouldn't be driving through our subdivision, but I don't believe that for a minute. But our concerns are that our subdivision has no sidewalks. Therefore, our residents, and especially our children, walk on our roads, ride their bicycles on our roads, and we believe any extra traffic coming through from Alexander's Crossing would be a great safety hazard to our residents and children. Also, hearing that the building is going to start on the south side first, I'm already seeing a big increase on Massaponax Church Road, and it's already busy. And I didn't hear how they are going to take care of that. And traffic congestion, to me, is already heavy on Massaponax Church Road, and I just see this increasing. Thank you for your time.
Rodea Davis, followed by Todd Runyon.
Afternoon, it's Robert Davies. I'm sorry about the messy spelling. And happy Thanksgiving to you folks up there. I know you're all pretty busy. So I originally wanted to talk about the connector, but holy cow, what a, can you bring up that one slide with the MEUs? Gentlemen, right there you go. So there's 4 entrances on a Massaponax Church Road. I'm not sure if anybody's driven that in a while, but that is a single lane road, each direction. I mean, I personally, I go out there and bicycle. I've been hit a couple times. That is not going to support Massaponax Church Road. That's a mess. That needs to probably be at least if you're going to do that entire thing over the next over a decade, that needs to probably be about a 2-lane each way road. The traffic is already backed up there at the VRE, right where the Route 17 and VRE, the new station is. So if you're going to have people pulling out of there to try to get to VRE, because there's a lot of homes. It's, what, over 3,000? Is it 5,000 extra jobs or 6,300 jobs? I was kind of unclear. The presentation said 5,000. Sounded like the lawyer said 6,300. And we have if I decided to live in that neighborhood, we have, sounded like 6.9 miles of trails that were paid for by either the applicant or the HOA. I think I'd want to know that before I built that out. And to echo the homeowners, the nice lady that came up before me, right? It might be in the rules somewhere that there needs to be a connector, but there's no sidewalks, and that neighborhood has just tons and tons and tons of kids, and they're out and about in the street. And I understand it's nice to say that nobody will cut through, but odds are good if 4 entrances are trying to get back on a Massaponax Church Road, somebody will cut through the neighborhood several times at a good speed. And I'm also very curious about I think it was $500K proffered for the police department. I've been texting a couple deputies tonight, and that gets us 5 deputies for 1 year for 3,000 homes, which seems like a little bit of a shortfall. That's all I've got, and have a good Thanksgiving.
Todd Runyon, followed by Christopher Eckbright, perhaps.
Mr. Chairman, Board, I'm Todd Runyon, 8815 Kent Court and Lancaster Gate. I initially was opposing, actually I still am opposing the right-of-way cause connecting Lancaster Gate. The other 2 speakers are correct. It's a small community that's widely used by joggers, bikers, and an enormous amount of children. And unfortunately, this cutoff is in an area where there are very few homes, and we've called on Spotsylvania County Sheriff's Office on numerous occasions to set up radar there because our own residents kind of fly through that area. And if we're doing it, then I'm sure many others will. The other safety factor is coming off Massaponax Church Road, turning left onto left or right into Lancaster Gate at the end of rush hour. Traffic starts to back up towards Massaponax Church Road as we have a stop sign 220 yards from Massaponax Church Road. So people are stopping at a 4-way stop sign, and that backs up. Hasn't backed up to Massaponax Church Road yet, but it's backed all the way up past the playground, which is less than 60 yards away from Massaponax Church Road. So I'm just asking if it's all and the integrity on the roads right now. The additional traffic I feel is going to compromise the integrity on our roads. We have enormous amount of potholes in the area. We've been in contact with VDOT since 2012 and 13 to get some of them fixed, and we can't even get that done. So if we're going to introduce a lot more traffic, then I have a feeling that that's going to be an issue as well. And being retired from public service myself, I was a consultant with Rappahannock Regional Jail, and I understand there are numerous planning studies and over the next 10 and 15 and 20 years, and what's going to happen and what should happen doesn't always happen. We opened that jail in 2001 with a planning study that showed that we would never reach 600 inmates until 2012. And the day that we opened that jail up, we were at 663. It's a $51 million jail to come in under budget. However, our count, when I retired 5 years ago, was at our 2020 projections, and we had to have an addition built already. So $41 million is a nice proffer, but if we're building 3 extra schools, I'm sure that the county realizes that that's not even going to suffice for that. But thank you. Have a good night.
Christopher Enbright, followed by Chad Renard.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the board there. My name is Christopher Engelwright. I represent Lancaster Gate Homeowners Association as their registered community association manager. Mrs. Tranter and a couple of the homeowners did beat me up to the podium here, and I think you'll hear a number of concerns, and I know your plate is full with considering a fairly large project in this. The association has 2 main concerns with this proposed site plan. I'm going off the generalized development plan dated 11/4/15, specifically slide 4, which is currently. Mr. Hughes, would you mind forwarding that to the rest of the screen there? Yeah. Appreciate it. That's pretty much a duplicate of panel 4 of the proposal. What we're looking at and what we've found to date is it is noted on here a acquired by Spotsylvania County, a connector to Lancaster Ring Road with the moderately low density proposed plot M there. It's currently zoned for, or listed to be zoned as MU3. We have not found anywhere in the county code where there is a requirement to do so, only that a consideration is made for such. We see absolutely no benefit, and we've been over this countless times, to the association, and when I say the association, Lancaster Gate Association, for this connector, only detriment. I understand that Mr. Payne brought up some points about being able to cut through and ease of traffic. I'll be honest with you, if any of you have had a chance to ride through Lancaster Gate, you will know that Lancaster Gate is, while it is a traditional single-family detached single-family home community, it is out there. People do like their privacy. They move into that association for it being a one-way in, one-way out association that they can get off of 95 and not have to worry about things. What we see is we are the closest left turn on Massaponax Church Road to Route 1, where the majority of the traffic comes off of to get to Massaponax Church Road. We can only see possible cut-through happening through there. Safety concerns, detriment to the existing already poor shape of the paving out there. And again, I invite all of you to drive that community when you get a chance. And again, lack of response to county officials when called for emergency and for speeding concerns and safety concerns out there. You'll hear multiple points on that tonight, as in addition to other things. The secondary and last point we have is land plat M being zoned MU3. While the proposal has, I believe, a mix of single-family detached and single-family attached homes within that development, MU3, and I'm probably beating a dead horse mentioning this to you all, does permit up to and includes commercial and high-density apartment space. We would like to limit the impact on our community in that area by having the board consider having that not rezoned to MU3, but rather MU1 or at a bare minimum MU2, so that the max that could be allowed in there is single-family detached and single-family attached, and the townhomes in the further northern section there. That is what we have. Mr. Renard will follow me and speak into slightly more detail on this matter, but I do thank you for your time, and I do hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving coming up here. Thank you.
Chad Renard, followed by Linda Sundler.
My name is Chad Renard. I am the attorney for Lancaster Gate HOA. Lancaster Gate is the association which sits to both the south and the west of the proposed Alexander's Crossing. You've seen a slide a handful of times that has had MU3 and MU4 zoning on it. Specifically of the, I think, 8 entrance points in to Alexander's Crossing. 7 of the arrows are red, 1 of them is yellow. It is the association's position it absolutely opposes the connector road, which is signified by the yellow arrow. And really, it gives rise to safety concerns of the families that already live within Lancaster Gate. The connector road that's being proposed will lead into what's called Lancaster Ring Road, which is within the Lancaster Gate community. This road, if you were ever to see it, you would quickly conclude should be seldom traveled and remains so. Lancaster Ring Road is presently a two-way street. It has no yellow line on it. There is no shoulder to the road. Most of the land adjacent to the road is ditches. There are no white lines painted on the road. Moreover, there are no sidewalks. Basically, this road was designed not only for use by vehicles, but pedestrians as well, as you've heard mentioned by its residents already tonight, and I expect you will hear by many of the residents yet to follow. This connector road we are concerned will lead to more traffic that will increase the risk of safety to the inhabitants within the community and the pedestrians that use this road as it was designed to do. Of significance on that slide, there is what's called an optional entrance. This is a red arrow that's towards the bottom right-hand corner. You will note that if that optional entrance is built, that would service the homes to be built in the MU3 district more effectively than the connector road ever possibly could. Specifically, if one was to use the connector road to exit the MU3 district, they would have to make not only a left onto Lancaster Ring Road, but then another left onto Lancaster Road before they would reach Massaponax Church. But in the case if that optional entrance were built, you would see those residents potentially in the MU3 district would have a very direct access to Massaponax Road, which completely underlies the need for the connector in this case, and we adamantly oppose that. So parenthetically, while Lancaster Gate argues tonight the connector is of no benefit to it, we would also submit that that connector is of no benefit to that MU3 district, which is in Land Bay M. And finally, the last point is, as you can see, the Land Bay M is presently projected to be MU3 or mixed use zoning. We again would posit that that be rezoned which would allow single-family homes, and this is in the circumstance if you determine that that connector road absolutely must stay to limit the impact of traffic that would be in the Lancaster Gate community. We would ask that the MU3 district for Land Bay M be reduced to MU1, which would only allow single-family homes, thus capping the number of persons to live in that area. As opposed to MU3, which would allow potentially for apartments as well as commercial use that would greatly increase the folks using that area. In closing, Lancaster Gate's before you based on its concerns to its inhabitants by the connector road and that yellow arrow. The association absolutely wishes that road not be built. Thank you.
Linda Sumler, followed by Lula Fasold. Linda? Lula Fasold? Are you Linda or Lula? Okay. Frank Broderson? Followed by Clint Havlin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Frank Broderson, 5320 West Philippi Place, Battlefield District. My comments tonight will be on ethics and using restricted MAI appraisals based on hypotheticals or conditions contrary to what is known to exist. Tonight's appraisals are from an out-of-state appraiser and both read Any use beyond our client's use or by the owner of record of the parcel is specifically prohibited. These two hypothetical appraisals claim $6.1 million for undeveloped land, parcels whose average total worth in this county I calculated at $438,000. Hypothetical appraisals are indeed known to be false. When this board accepts restricted, known to be false appraisals, you cause Spotsylvania taxpayers to fund capital facilities while giving the developer credit for having done so. Is that ethical? Per the appraiser, the appraisal submitted for Jackson Village and tonight's were exclusively intended for internal use by the purchaser. If you accept tonight's fraudulent value, when combined with that of Jackson Village's, Spotsylvania taxpayers will, and this is just using the false portion of the appraisals, we will have funded unnecessarily more than half of a baseball stadium. Local ethical MAI appraisers would love to have lawyer Payne's business, but not when knowing a restricted appraisal is actually for public use. Before Mr. Payne rebuts that it is the highest and best, let's be factually honest and accurate. Spotsylvania is not getting highest and best. Developed land is not being proffered. Walton is not donating surveyed, platted, and recorded semi-finished townhouse lots. No professional appraiser, much less a member of the Appraisal Institute, would ever willingly testify defending the use of a restricted appraisal for this public purpose. For you on the board, it becomes a moral decision. Using your individual integrity, your personal ethics, will you accept the prohibited use of restricted appraisals, or make an ethical decision that rejects the fraudulent portion of Walton's donation? Are we getting a mythical $6.1 million value or an actual $438,000? Your decision, your choice, your ethics. Thank you.
Clint Havlin, followed by Lawrence Walsh.
Hello, thank you. I'm Clint Havlin. I live at 3208 Lancaster Ring Road in Lancaster Gate. And I initially showed up here tonight to show disapproval for the connector to Lancaster Gate, but after seeing more of this proposal, I have a lot more issues with it than that. I echo the sentiments on the traffic that's already on Massaponax Church Road. That is a two-lane road, and I would invite the applicant's lawyer to maybe try to drive that road at 1 p.m. when the mailman's on that road and see the traffic backup that occurs. I mean, you're talking about adding 3 more connectors onto that road for this large development? I don't think so. I'm sorry, I don't see it. I've lived here for 3.5 years now, and in that time, I've watched the traffic in this area increase significantly. And a lot of the proposals I see tonight for improving traffic are things that need to be done with what we have now, not with what we're proposing to build right here. I just don't see how it's, I find a lot of the claims about the traffic reductions pretty dubious as well. I mean, I don't see how that could possibly work out with that large development. But I just, again, to echo a lot of the sentiments that have already been stated, Lancaster Gate has no sidewalks. It's a 2-lane road, no shoulder, no lines. My children bike and walk on that road. My wife and I bike and walk on that road. And I'm sorry, if you had a connector right there, it's going to get used, regardless of what anyone else says. Thank you. That's it.
Lawrence Walsh, followed by Sarah Walsh.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. Lawrence Michael Walsh, 8801 Newcastle Court in Lancaster Gate. Like the gentleman before me, I was originally coming tonight to only speak to my disapproval to the cut-through road. But after watching the presentation, I'm a little disappointed in the whole project. We attended the first meeting a little over a year ago that was to discuss the proposed project, or one of the first meetings. And at that point, it was, as echoed tonight, that it was going to be a community that brought jobs in and then people to work where they lived and live where they worked. It seems backwards to me that we are going to establish a whole bunch more homes for people who are going to work there, but the jobs aren't there. And it seemed that, if I was understanding correctly, when they were going through their presentation, that the last phase was actually building places for people to work and bringing in commercial and corporate jobs. So that seems entirely backwards. So I'm opposed to that concept. And if you were going to go through this, I would encourage you to bring in the jobs before you bring in additional homes. Secondly, I live in Lancaster Gate. I was the 33rd home in the neighborhood. I've been there since the neighborhood started in 1996. And the roads are not suited for through traffic. We have no sidewalks. Echo all the things that have already been said before me. Of grave concern is the traffic that's going to be on Massaponax Church Road. Massaponax Church Road now is a bicycle route. There are, and I don't know how often anyone sitting here drives down the road, but all week long, and specifically heavily on the weekends, when all of these commuters will be in their neighborhood and cutting through and driving, is heavily bike traffic. Massaponax Church Road has been echoed as 2 lanes, one in each direction. So it's very dangerous to bring all of these homes and traffic in. One gentleman mentioned he's been hit. I've actually seen 3 people hit. Sitting on the corner where I live at Newcastle Court, 2 people have died at that corner since I've been living there for the past 18 years, hit by cars already in the neighborhood because they were either on a bike or walking in the neighborhood. So to bring additional traffic through that we don't need and don't want will open up possibilities of more kids who have to literally walk on the streets to get to their school buses. There's no sidewalks. They are required to walk the streets to get to the school bus stops. The school bus does not stop at people's homes. You're required to cross over the main ring road, which, if the map was up, is in Lancaster Gate. This cut through that they propose coming south on the ring road would be the route of that traffic, and all of the children in the interior of Lancaster Gate have to cross over those roads to get to their bus stops. It's extremely dangerous, and absolutely oppose it 100%. Thank you.
Sarah Walsh, followed by Jenny Nerville.
Good evening, Sarah Walsh, resident of the Lancaster Gate subdivision. Have been, as my husband said, we were one of the first homes to be built there. I'm going to echo the sentiments so far to date that we oppose the connector. We purchased that home, we built on that land on the understanding that it was a closed neighborhood, 1 entrance, 1 exit. That means safety and security for ourselves and our family. Now that's changing, or proposed change. We did not sign up to live in a thoroughfare. We did not sign up to live in a cut-through. I would encourage you to look at other instances where this has happened in Spotsylvania, up off Route 3. I think it's the Maple Grove area and Norris Drive, and what happened there when cut-throughs were created to connect neighborhoods, and how corrections had to be made because of the traffic taking shortcuts. I recently saw a study by Deloitte. The engineers released a study that looked at, despite how we plan traffic, human nature is to take shortcuts and cut-throughs. I understand Mr. Payne says that there will be main entrances and exits off Massaponax, but people will be connecting to Route 1 and to 95. They're going to take the shortest route. They're going to go through Lancaster Gate subdivision. As everybody has said, those roads are not built for that type of traffic. 750 additional homes in the new neighborhood with only entrances and exits on Massaponax Church Road does not sound like good planning. It does not sound sensible. That road can already not handle the traffic. It's already not safe. Our children cross Lancaster Gate to get to the bus stops. We walk our dogs, we bike, we run. We have no sidewalks. We do not want traffic that is not from our neighborhood, designed for our neighborhood, cutting through our neighborhood. We do not want to access the new development. If we do, we'll take the main roads. We do not want a connector. It's not necessary. And as was stated by our homeowners association lawyer, it doesn't even sound like it really is a true requirement for this planning and this development. Thank you.
Jenny Nerville, followed by John Falk.
My name is Jerry Norville, 5220 East Philippi Place in Homeowners Association of good evening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'm going to be very brief today. Let me begin by asking a question. How many of you on the board have read this book and are familiar with this book called The Demographic Cliff? Demographic Cliff. Anybody? I heard all of these things tonight, and I agree with many of the things that were said, but one of the things that was said, not said tonight, was what do you folks do when it comes time to look at the national demographics that this country has? Where do your demographics fit into the national demographics? How do you substantiate 6,000 jobs, 225 million in transportation, that sort of thing, if you haven't analyzed the demographics of what the situation is in this particular area here? And the demographics need to be looked at as part of what you're doing. And if you do that, I think you'll be surprised to know that you're going to find difficulties with public and private debt, health care, retirement pension entitlements, global authoritarianism in the sense of foreign countries, that is, environmental pollution, and a global war with ISIS. All of those things decide what's really going to happen, not what you do here. So I would encourage you and the developer to take a look at these national demographics and kind of merge them in yours and be a little more realistic about what you're trying to do 20 years from now. Thank you.
John Falk, followed by Renee Rosales.
Good evening, I'm John Falk, 5728 West Kessler's Crossing in the Battlefield District. I am opposed to this development. The developer seems to overstate his proffers and understates the number of children and the extent of how he's going to impact the county. Either this developer or the other developer on the other side of 95 seems to be paying for the bridge to cross over. It looks like we, the county taxpayers, are going to have to pay the burden unless you make this developer pay for the bridge. Thank you.
Renee Rosales, followed by Suzanne Stancork.
I'm Renee Rosales, 8810 Newcastle Court. My husband and I used to live in Prince William County. I work in Prince William County. He works in Fairfax County. We moved to Massaponax to get away from that. We have a 2-year-old daughter. We moved to Lancaster Gate because it's quiet, it's small. We wanted to stay away from that. You bring that connector in. I purposely do not walk my daughter in the neighborhood on the weekends because of the traffic we have now. You bring that connector in, I won't be able to walk her at all during the week. And Massaponax Church Road, can I handle all that traffic? If you haven't driven on it, go on it, and you'll see. Thank you.
Suzanne Stancourt, followed by Terry Fabricatori. Suzanne, Terry, Purview J. Dillard Jr., Tom Howyer, Lena Henderson,
Good evening. My name is Lena Henderson, and I reside at 4212 Saltburn Court in Lancaster Gate. I come here tonight before you to say that I oppose the connector. As everyone has stated before, there is a safety concern. Lancaster Gate is an older subdivision. It doesn't have a lot of homes. I've been in Lancaster Gate since 1999. It is a quiet neighborhood, and people will use it. If you put the connector in there, people will use it as a cut through. I know the reality of it is you're saying they won't, but that's the reality. They will use it. Like someone said before, people try to get the quickest way. I am a commuter, and the traffic it will make a big difference on the traffic. My other concern is Massaponax Church Road. Right now, since the VRE station opened up, the traffic on Massaponax Church Road has increased significantly. You want to build a subdivision with more houses and access points on Massaponax Church Road, you would have to do something about that road. Right now, the road cannot handle the traffic that is on the road. It does back up. Even to turn into Lancaster Gate, and when you come through and commute on 5:30, 5 o'clock in the evening to turn into Lancaster Gate, traffic does back up in the evenings. It's just a matter of time before it's going to back up even further. The stoplight at Route 1 when you turn onto Massaponax Church Road has already seen the big increase in traffic backing up in the evenings. Someone talked about there being a bike route on the weekends. The bikers on Massaponax Church Road, it's just really hazardous. A couple years ago, my father got hit off of Massaponax Church Road because he was at the mailbox. It's a dangerous road, and right now with the traffic being increased, I just don't see that that's impossible. I oppose this whole new subdivision being built at all, using Lancaster Gate as an access point and using Massaponax Church Road. I think it would be about, if they wanted to do it, let the hospital or Cosner Corner be another access point into the subdivision. Massaponax Church Road just can't handle anything else. Thank you.
There are no other citizens signed up to speak.
Anybody else here who would wish to speak, please come forward. State your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you for hearing us out this evening. My name is Mer Kaplan. I live at 3818 Lancaster Ring Road. I am not on the lower end of Lancaster Ring where the connecting traffic would be coming through, although that is a huge concern. And I reiterate everything that everyone else has said about the volume as well as the safety aspects of that. My greater concern is somewhat selfish, and I realize that I am just one of hundreds of houses in our neighborhood. I am at the top end of Lancaster Ring Road, right below that retail area that they're proposing, the Retail H pad. There's also a solid waste management section that's going to be right below that and literally in my backyard. Beyond the noise pollution, the potential air pollution, as well as potential rodent issues coming into that area, because that would be the waste management area for the majority of that retail, at least that's how it appears. I have a number of my neighbors as well that are very concerned about what that impact will be to our property value and to our quality of life in our quiet little neighborhood. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gloria Hudson. I live at 4514 Cornwall Court. I moved from Northern Virginia to Fredericksburg for the quiet living. We found that here. We found the great people that greet each other. I know my neighbors. I know everybody on the side of my street. You put this connector in, I feel that that quaint littleness will go away. And I walk my dog every night around 6 o'clock, and I wear a bright neon vest, and I always almost get hit because studies show people text message while they drive. On their way home, they don't pay attention. It's really hazardous. I'm happy for change, but this subdevelopment is just, I feel like Spotsylvania County is just getting gypped on how much we're paying and what we're getting. So I hope you guys take that in consideration and have a happy Thanksgiving.
My name is Caleb Lang. I live over in off Gordon Road in the Chancellor something district. I moved up here recently about 2 years ago to get out of Richmond, which was full of congestion and all sorts of things. But I'm here to say that I'm actually for this project. I understand what everybody's saying about the traffic over on Massaponax Church Road, but when that road was designed, roads generally have a 20-year growth factor before they have to be looked at again, resurfaced, reconstructed. And it probably is time to look at Massaponax Church Road. But Walton's providing traffic, what is it, $24 million of in-kind traffic proffers. And living off Gordon Road, where traffic is also a very heavily trafficked, they've put in a number of turn lanes and things so you can wait until you have an opening of traffic to get out of the way, and it's a bit more safe than it used to be. So I do appreciate the traffic proffers that they're offering and hope that maybe there's some way that can be used to alleviate some of that congestion there. Additionally, I like the overall development because it coincides with the county's growth plan and purpose for that site. And that's no surprise to anybody because you all have put that site specifically in your plan for mixed-use development. And so for those reasons, I think that this is something good. And having a very personal experience with growth, my wife and I have had 5 children in 6.5 years, and I understand all the problems that growth goes through. Charlie, what'd you say? It was 0.9% growth in the county? I think we're averaging 20% growth in my household. So I know about budgeting and all that kind of stuff. So I think getting the growth of Spotsylvania County up a little higher, expanding that tax base, putting a project where it's supposed to be, having proffers that deal with the transportation, I think that's a good thing, and I'm for the project.
Good evening. My name is Christine Lynch, and I live at 6603 Prospect Street. And tonight I'm here representing Spotsylvanians for Responsible Growth. So may I have 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. So Spotsylvanians for Responsible Growth, we're a grassroots citizen committee who are interested in seeing more responsible growth policies and decisions in the county. Our group has many objections to this project, but I'd like to focus on just one, and that is the inflated value of the land donation that constitutes part of the proffer package. The applicant proposes to donate 15 acres, which their hired gun appraiser has valued at $6.3 million. That equates to about $412,000 per acre. So let's just compare this to some relevant value indicators. The county's own proffer policy, which you all passed here some weeks ago, says that land for proffer purposes should be valued at, let's see, no more than $36,000 per acre. Compare that to the $412,000 the developer wants credit for. Example number 2. VDOT has valued the 25 acres for the new VRE station parking lot at, get this, $36,000 per acre. Again, compare that to $412,000. And third, the grocery store Lidl, you all remember that, purchased their lot on Smith Station Road across from Lee's Park for $25,000 an acre. So how did we get to $412,000? But let's say the land is actually worth $36,000 per acre. So that times 15 acres donated, that's $540,000. Let's just say that's the actual value of that land. 6.3 million that they have valued it at minus 540,000 is an overvaluing of 5.7 million. But what does that mean to regular taxpayers, like the people sitting in this room? It means that we will have to pay for $5.7 million worth of roads and schools and fire stations to accommodate these new residents. Spotsylvanians for Responsible Growth would like to see the applicant make up that $5.7 million shortage in cash to pay for a small part of the facilities that these new residents will require. And with that, I will end, but I see a lot more people in this room who seem to have an opinion about this than have spoken tonight. So I would like to ask everyone in this room who opposes this project to please stand. Thank you very much.
My name is Donna Pinkowski. I live at 6147 Hickory Ridge Road. I'm in the Berkeley district. I won't go over again what Christine just said, but I would like to say that a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. And $6 million would go a long way, a lot farther towards civic uses than just 15 acres of land in the midst of a subdivision. Go for the cash, bird in the hand. The other thing that I would like to comment on is in the staff report, there was a section that said there are 5 intersections that will experience degraded levels of service during the AM and PM peak. They are Massaponax Church Road in Route 1, Spotsylvania Parkway in Route 1, Route 17 at Route 1, Hospital Boulevard at Route 17, and Cosner Drive at Route 17. Guinea Station Road and Hickory Ridge Road are the next 2 intersections south of this development. And oftentimes when there are accidents at the parkway or getting on or off the highway, I get alerts from Spotsylvania Alert that says, find another route to go. If I need to get on 95, I head south to go north. And many people do that. So I would like to see my intersection and Guinea Station Road included in the traffic study and included for consideration perhaps for a traffic light. We just sit and wait as all the traffic goes by, and during those peak hours, it's a really tough time. Thank you for your consideration.
Mary Lou Collier, Mr. Skinner's district. I have got so many questions, so many concerns, what I've heard tonight and what I've read. But back to my opening comment, numbers. Scrutinize those numbers. We already found out that quite a few numbers tonight were incorrect. This gentleman had some numbers, this gentleman had some numbers that didn't jive. A lot of things don't seem to be jiving correctly. I don't know, this article in the paper today notes median household incomes, 90,000, 120,000, 78,000. I don't know where these figures are coming, because we may think we have that kind of median income, but there are a lot of people that make a lot less, and they're not going to be able to afford these kind of homes. Traffic study, was one ever performed of these different locations? And I mean a traffic study, not just 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour at night, and not just one day of the week, but has traffic study actually been done? Let's see. The 5 acres, it was questionable as to what it was going to be used. We need to know what it's going to be used before you even note about it, 5 acres. Is that going to be an animal shelter? Is that going to, what is it going to be? Your commercial sector, we don't know what it's going to be. It's always assumptions. We hear about jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, you know what really surprises me, and it really aggravates me to a point, that the current growth rate in the county, and this is a quote from Mr. Payne, even with the approval of new projects, our analysis shows that Spotsylvania has issued less than 1,500 occupancy permits in the past 4 years, in 10 months, and grown approximately 9.9% last year. Many of these permits derive from development projects approved more than 15 years ago. What in the world are we keep rubber stamping more and more developments that haven't even been developed? 15 years in the past, nothing's been done. Promises of jobs, promises of commercial activity that bring money to the county. It's empty promises. I think you need to look into this and see how many of these developments that have been promised to the county that haven't even been developed, when are they going to be developed, and how that's going to impact all of our services for the county. And remember, too, when the federal government starts clamping down on their monies, those jobs, a lot of people are commuting up north, they're going to find that they don't have that kind of revenue. And we can always have all these assumptions, but I still think this needs to be tabled or denied completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here wish to speak?
Good evening. My name is Michelle Tyson. I live at 3515 Lancaster Ring Road in Lancaster Gate. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said because I'm on board with them as far as the objection to the cut through to the neighborhood and obviously the traffic to Massaponax Church Road. I am, however, going to repeat and agree specifically, again, with this lady here that just spoke before me. I have lived in Spotsylvania for 15 years, grew up in Stafford my whole entire life. Commuting is part of the way of life here. I am lucky that I get to work from home. My job allows me to do that. I would love to have a place where I could live and work together, but I can't afford it. The salaries here, the retail that you're speaking of in this new division, this new community that you're talking about, y'all just built Cosner's Corner, or whoever just built Cosner's Corner. I've seen so many companies come in and out and vacant lots, vacancies in Cosner's Corner. They're all moving to town. They're all moving to Fredericksburg. You can't even keep the retail that we have here because they're moving to town or moving someplace else. You can't afford to work here to live here. I could not afford to stay in my home without the job that I have now, without the salary I have now. I make more than probably your average $42,000 a year, yes. But what kind of jobs are you bringing here that's going to allow anybody here to afford to live in their home? This community is not going to do it. You can't even guarantee retail coming into this community. You can't guarantee keeping the retail that we have here now without us having to drive to town or to Richmond. And by town, I mean Fredericksburg, I mean Route 3. And we've all seen how that's grown up over the years. I remember what it looked like 30 years ago when I was a kid. So I'm just saying, in your consideration of this new community and this cut through, also consider all of your residents here in Spotsylvania County, and does it benefit us? Because I don't think it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here wish to speak? The applicant will have 5-minute rebuttal time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Charlie Payne, the law firm Herschel Fleischer, represent the applicant. I was going to ask for an hour, Mr. Chairman, but of course, I'm teasing. I think first and foremost, community comments and concerns that are raised at public meetings are very important to the process. For those who are unaware how long we have been engaged in this process, projects like this don't start overnight. The application is almost a year old, as you heard staff say earlier, since it's been submitted. Prior to that, there's a year of planning, community meetings, et cetera. So there is a significant amount of due diligence engagement. I don't want the public to think that somehow we just show up on Tuesday evenings and present a case to you and submit a case to you and say, here it is, take it or leave it. That's certainly not the case. I think I can resolve one problem real quick that most of the residents here said tonight. We don't need access through Lancaster Gate. It is there only because county policy encourages interparcel connections, and many reasons are good reasons for that. Public safety reasons, efficiency of school buses getting through neighborhoods, et cetera. But we don't need the access for purposes of any VDOT requirements or otherwise. So we can take it off the table, be happy to do that. There's 501 units in Lancaster Gate. I'm sure our adjoining neighborhood with 518 single-family detached units adjacent to that site would not want them winding through their neighborhood as well. So we can certainly take that off the table and I think alleviate many of the concerns that were raised here tonight. In regards to the zoning map, just for reference, the MU3 district is residential. It's proffered that way pursuant to our GDP, so we can't change it to commercial. I heard some concerns about that, so I just wanted to raise that issue, that if we were to change that, we'd have to come back here before this board to do that. Growth, it's always an issue for every rezoning project, and it's certainly a natural concern of residents. We understand that. Again, as I stated earlier, there hasn't been a whole lot of growth since the Great Recession in this county. This is a planned high-growth area, though. So for those who live nearby this area, the county has planned this area for a high-density mixed-use growth. And what we're trying to create here is an environment for work-live. We understand how difficult it's going to be in the future to encourage employment centers to our area. And we also are well aware of the fact that the federal government will at some point in time begin to downsize and invest less in the things that we benefit the most from, which is national security and national defense in this area. So what we're trying to create is a sustainable employment environment in our community. We do not want folks to have to get on the road. It has major impacts not only in quality of life, but also in our traffic. So we are trying to alleviate those issues. And in regards to transportation, it's extraordinarily important to understand that over the past 20-plus years, it has been the private sector that's built most of the roads in Spotsylvania County. And that's because there's a difficult sort of friction, if you will, in how to pay for it from a taxpayer perspective and how to make it work from the private sector. It is true at Lees Park. It is true at South Point. Those major roads that were built through there were built for and proffered and benefited from in those communities, and the community was benefited from those improvements as well, as we're providing with this bridge crossing. Again, Jackson Gateway is off the table. There has to be a southern relief, and we're providing it between Jackson Village and between Alexander's Crossing. And there's a significant amount of improvements, road improvements, that are being proffered in this project. In regards to phasing, and Mr. McLaughlin asked a great question, we're asked to put a phasing plan forward based on the current market. We're just anticipating how the phasing will occur. It doesn't mean that we can't build 500,000 square feet of commercial if a user comes to our site. And it doesn't mean we don't build associated and related infrastructure for that purpose as well. It doesn't prohibit us from doing it. We're asked to say, what does it look like to you in the crystal ball over the next 20 years? And we throw it out there and say, here's what we think is going to happen. But that's not our structured plan. Our plan could change based on the market. And believe me, we have over 1 million square feet of office commercial here. It is vitally important to our project to attract a large employer to that site, as well as an industrial user, as well as a hotel user. And we have a small footprint. If you look at 1.558 million square feet of commercial, we have 145,000 square feet of commercial, and it's a neighborhood commercial, not big box. We do not want to compete with our competitors at Cosner's Corner. And a young lady who just made a comment a little while ago about that retail struggling, you're darn right it is. It needs more people shopping there. And that's why this project makes a lot of sense. The appraisal, I've heard this before. We follow the guidelines under the proffer requirements in providing an MAI appraisal. It's a certified appraisal. It's highest and best use. It looks at comparables in the area, not anywhere else. And that gentleman, by the way, who's been beaten up a couple of times, is well respected in his field, and he's been doing it for over 35 years, and he's very well aware of this area. With that, Mr. Chairman, I know my time is out. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and if I missed anything, I ran out of time. There were a lot of comments. I'd be happy to answer those questions as well. Oh, Mr. Chairman, if I may add one more thing.
Yes, sir.
What we need to understand as well is that Massaponax Church Road is slated for improvements for a 4-lane collector road. That has already started near Route 17 area of the intersection with Massaponax Church Road. It is to extend the courthouse road. So those plans are in place to occur into the future. Again, this is a long-term project over 20 years. We don't see immediate impacts to Massaponax Church Road in the near future. And we're hoping and we believe that the regional transportation plans that this board is looking at today and implementing into the near future will coincide very well with the infrastructure we're providing within this development.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Cibula.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen who attend here tonight and came forward to speak. This is a holiday week. There's probably a lot of people, and I anticipate that there are, who haven't had the opportunity to speak because they are on travel. For that reason, and a few more that I'm going to list, Mr. Gary Skinner is a co-supervisor for this project, and he was unable to be here tonight, and I think it would be wrong to bring this to a vote without his presence being here. We have had revised proffers that have been just received today that the county has not had a chance to fully vet. And as you've seen this evening, we've already had a new proffer for the connector to Lancaster Gate, and I thoroughly agree with that. I have been in your community in Lancaster Gate. I campaigned there. I went door to door there. I traveled those streets many times. I know your concerns there, and I share them with you. So based on all of what I've said, I'm going to ask for a continuance till the next board meeting, which will give those who haven't had a chance or the opportunity to speak on this issue, they will have a chance to speak at the December 8th board meeting. Those who have spoken tonight cannot speak again on this subject at the public hearing. I want to bring that to your attention. So I motion to continue until this project until the board meeting on the 8th of December.
Thank you. Motion on the floor to hold the public hearing open until December 8th. Okay, that wording made my lawyer very happy, our lawyer. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, Mr. Taylor.
Next on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is the presentation for adoption of our FY 2017 to 2021 Capital Improvements Plan.
Thank you. There is a presentation that is being passed out.
May I please have the floor computer? Good evening again. The recommended CIP for fiscal year 2017 to 2021 was presented to you initially on October 13th. Then on October 27th, a public hearing and a CIP work session were held, and the county's adopted CIP calendar calls for the board to adopt the CIP this evening. However, that calendar was dependent upon the schools adopting their CIP last night. And we were informed recently by the school staff that they are not going to be prepared to adopt their CIP until late January due to additional vetting and review that needs to occur on the study being conducted for school enrollment projections and the corresponding need for capital projects. In your packet this evening was the current version of the CIP, and for folks at home, that's also available online. Since the last presentation of the CIP was made to you in late October, a few changes have occurred. They're listed here on the next couple of slides. The first relates to the CAD system, which is computer-aided design, basically the dispatch system for public safety. We're proposing that that be increased in fiscal year 2017 by $1.75 million, and that's due to an anticipated shift in existing funding that will be recommended to the board at the December 8th board meeting relative to funding a project for economic development purposes. Because the economic development project will need to occur sooner than later, staff will propose that $1.75 million be shifted from the existing funding on the CAD system replacement project to the economic development project. And I have spoken with Jane Reeve, the Director of Information Services, and she agrees that the shifting of the existing funding away from the CAD system project will not be a detriment to the progress of this CAD system project or to the project schedule. And again, that request for an official budget adjustment will come to you at your next meeting. I'm telling you about this tonight because it does impact what we've placed in the CIP. Also, what has changed in the version of the CIP that is in your packet for tonight is previously we had a placeholder figure in for the school's numbers. It was simply what the schools had included in last year's CIP brought forward to this year's CIP. The schools, although they have not provided details on the projects, they have provided their bottom line numbers. And again, these are staff's numbers, not the school board's adopted numbers. We have adjusted the figures in this CIP, which is a net reduction of $4.4 million from the placeholder we had previously included. Excuse me. On the utilities side of the CIP, we have included $50,000 that was added to fiscal year 2019 for the Utilities Country Club Estates System Improvements Project. We also added $150,000 in fiscal year 17 for asphalt overlay and repairs requested as part of the fiscal year 17 operating budget process for repairs at the composting facility. Additionally, Utilities has requested shifts between years of funding, and these shifts net to zero, but they've requested that $3.5 million be shifted from fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 18 for the Utilities lab and office expansion, and $5 million be shifted from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 20 for the Hunting Run and Nye River reservoir connections. Also, at the last board, the October 27th board meeting, I told you that we had not at that point calculated the city's share of certain utilities projects. We have now done that, and those numbers are in the information that was provided to you. So tonight's version of the CIP is very much summarized here in this slide. It totals $280.2 million over the 5-year period, and you can see there the breakdown. General government over that time frame is $27.8 million. Solid waste is $10.3 million. Parks and Rec is $7 million. Fire and Rescue, $18 million. Transportation, $32.9 million. Schools at $103.1 million, and utilities at $81.1 million. There really, at this point, are two options for your adoption of the CIP. Option one is you could adopt the CIP as presented tonight with the school's placeholder figures. If the school board adopts figures that are different than the numbers that are included here, we would need to come back to this board and have you re-adopt the CIP with the revised school numbers. Or option two, you could choose to postpone adoption of the county's CIP until February or later to allow staff time to incorporate the school's adopted figures into your initial adoption of the CIP. So obviously that option is for you to choose. And again, this is the same slide. The CIP totals $280.2 million over the 5-year period. And with that, I will be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Is there any specific impact of option 1 or option 2? In other words, would it be better, from staff's perspective, would it be better to select option 1?
I think
or
maybe I'll
option
defer
2?
that to the county administrator.
Ms. Heiding, members of the board, there are substantially equivalent choices, although I think there is a statement to be made under option 1, which is why option 1 is preferred. As part of our the adopted calendars for the CIP and budget process and the adopted fiscal policies, the board has been working to move in the direction of a more disciplined and orderly approach to budgeting, having the CIP adopted with a placeholder for the schools based on the information that they have given us. That's not an uninformed or a presumptive placeholder. That's a good faith basis on information that we've been given from them. And the expectation is under option 1 that would provide a platform for us to plan budgeting for debt service and form up the rest of the budget. So we would prefer option 1. It can be changed later if dire necessity should arrive, but we frankly expect that the school's numbers will come in substantially as projected. It was their data.
Thank you. That's sort of what I suspected, but I wanted to make sure.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, Mr. Cibula?
Based on what's just been said, I would motion to approve option 1.
Motion on the floor to approve option 1. Any discussion?
Just real quick, what's the impact of option, if we just go with option 2?
Option 2 is simply deferral. It's not approval at this time. It would hold this issue until January or February of next year.
What's the impact?
There is no budget impact to that. We would like to have a decision made in order to form the basis for debt service budgeting in the proposed budget to be coming to you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to what the county administrator says, if you approve the plan tonight, that the county would have an idea of at least our portion of the CIP that met with your all's approval, knowing that the school portion may change at a later date. However, if you choose to defer that until we get the school numbers, then we won't have a revised approved CIP for the county portion of it, as well as holding off on the schools.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So how much does that impact you? In other words, I think we're probably pretty close to it, but if we were to delay it, how long is the planning process on your part, Bonnie? I mean, it's just...
I think at this point, if I may, at this point, we would just plan as part of our budget process to include the debt service related to the projects that are currently in this draft until we hear otherwise from the board. And so we would probably move forward in that direction.
And then once it is approved, how much time on your part? Is it getting on a time? I'm trying to understand the impact. I understand the preference, but if the schools would come back with a CIP that's out of line, we may have to change ours. So would that be correct or not?
Yeah.
That would be correct,
So,
yes.
So I'm like, why would we adopt something tonight that we might need to change in the future without having the full facts from the schools, unless it's a huge impact on staff and how they plan things out?
Well, as I understand the data that's been received from the schools, I think it's fair and reasonable for us to expect that while the schools may want to shift money between columns, that the total projected number that they've given us should be good, and we should have the right to expect that. And that's why I think proceeding based on the projection we've been given makes sense and is consistent with the policies and the calendar that the board's adopted.
But we could still stick with that calendar if we adopt it in February, correct, or not?
Well, the calendar calls for adoption of the CIP today.
But other than that adoption, and other than today's date for adopting it, what other things will it impact on the calendar if we go with option 2?
Well, I'm struggling a bit, I confess respectfully, with the question, because it's other than 100% change in the calendar for adoption of the CIP, what would moving this adoption affect in the budget?
The question is, what other than adopting the CIP tonight is it impacted on the calendar?
It won't significantly impact the calendar or staff, however, it will kind of leave a little less certainty as we prepare our budget estimates as to what will actually be the final adopted CIP for the county section. I mean, we understand that the schools may make some changes in the future once they adopt their CIP. However, you know, this with you not adopting, you choosing to defer adoption would just, again, leave that door open as we're going forward with our budget, you know, on the county side.
Do you want to go ahead? Go first.
Yes. It's a certainty for, at least from my perspective, it's a certainty for staff to go ahead with significant figures that they need to impact on the budget if we do this tonight. If we delay it, there may or may not be a change. But they have the uncertainty of not knowing until that point in time how to develop the budget. That's why I made the motion.
Well, I think part of this, too, was brought before us a while back about having this and finalizing this ahead of time, because I think we have, in years past, gone through with sort of a floating CIP, and this was one of those things that they wanted to implement to structure the budget season and process a little bit better than we had been doing. And so that was to get the CIP in line, knowing that the schools give us numbers that are pretty good and that we will fill that in, and that hopefully next year we will have their numbers at the same time, so that moving into the future, our budget process is cleaner, more structured, and more succinct as we go along. Any other questions? A motion on the floor to adopt? Seeing no more discussion, please vote.
Six yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Taylor, next up.
Next up is the comprehensive plan, thoroughfare plan amendment.
And this, I might note, is the last item on our 7 p.m. presentations by others.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I believe we will be brief. What we're bringing before you this evening are two proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. We bundled these together just for convenience because they would ultimately end up being amendments to the thoroughfare plan of the comprehensive plan, but the two projects are completely unrelated, and they are at different places in the planning process. Floor computer, please. The first project we're going to talk about briefly is the I-95 Exit 126 project. We have a interchange modification report that is currently being reviewed by the Federal Highway Administration, as well as a planning study that complements that. The interchange modification report focuses heavily on what is called the J ramp off of I-95 to South Point Parkway. And then the second is a new interconnector road. This is a new concept road between Spotsylvania Parkway, where it terminates on the west end, and Gordon Road. This would cross over Courthouse Road and connect up to Gordon Road. So just to move on to talk about Exit 126. This is a project that was reviewed by the Board of Supervisors in March of 2014 and endorsed to move forward. There were a number of phases that were prioritized as part of the project, with the J-ramp being upfront. We've applied for House Bill 2 funding for the J-ramp, as well as the bridge replacement over I-95 on Route 17 and widening to Hospital Boulevard. What was mentioned a couple times in the prior case, Alexander's Crossing, is that there was a prior proposal for a new interchange at approximately mile marker 123. That is what's currently in our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan was adopted in November of 2013, and very soon after that adoption, that plan went by the wayside in favor of this plan here that includes the J-ramp and the super ramp. So we need to get our comprehensive plan in line with the roadway network that is moving forward. I did learn today that FHWA had a few questions that VDOT is responding to. So the timing of when we bring forth this comprehensive plan amendment, it may be in the January, February timeframe, just so that we can be sure that FHWA does not have major concerns resulting in a disapproval of this plan. So that is one item that we are proposing to add to the comprehensive plan, and eliminating the mile marker 123 interchange. And then if you just show the next slide, that's just a close-up showing that J-ramp, which would be an initial phase. And then the second road Dan is going to talk about.
All right. Well, the second road has been shown to the Transportation Committee, and it was viewed as very favorable. The road has several advantages. Basically, it goes from Spotsylvania Parkway on up to Gordon Road. The road traverses 6 properties, 5 of which are owned by a single property owner. The roadway, if built, is bordered on the southwest by the Spotsylvania National Military Park. And the new road would address future high-growth areas in the county. Staff modeled the road to see how much traffic it would actually carry. We actually included Jackson Village, South Point Parkway, or South Point Landing, and Heritage Woods in the all that were recently approved. And basically, we showed that the road would carry about 13,000 vehicles a day on the southern half, and maybe a little over 10,000 in the northern half of the road, which is approximately the same volume that Smith Station Road carries now. We have actually Smith Station Road, the widening of it is in our comp plan now. Back in 2005, when we looked at, when we had the bond referendum in 2005, we actually looked at what it would take to widen that road to a 4-lane divided facility. And we had the firm of Greenhorn, O'Mara, and Dewberry, and the cost we came up with was, or the cost they came up with was $65 million. If we were to widen this road, it would essentially, I think we could essentially look at maybe not widening Smith Station Road. The cost, based on VDOT's cost per mile, would be almost half of what it would do, what it would cost to widen Smith Station Road. And our projection for 2030 volumes on Smith Station Road was something like 30,000 cars. So so it would cost, approximately half what it would cost to build it. I had a former boss that used to say, that worked here at the county, that used to say that we needed to do things cheaper, faster, and better. If we were to build this connector road or Spotsylvania Parkway extension, it would be cheaper because it would probably be less than half the cost. That's due to less right-of-way and utilities to deal with. It would be faster because we'd only have basically 2 property owners to deal with, as opposed to maybe 50 to 100 that now live on, I don't know, on Smith Station Road. And it would be better because I think it would be less of an inconvenience to homeowners that live on Smith Station Road, and it would actually reduce traffic at the one of our bottlenecks, which is Courthouse Road and the intersection of Courthouse Road and Smith Station Road. We may even save some money. We may not have to make future changes there if we could divert a lot of the traffic off Smith Station and Courthouse Road.
So the next steps for the two projects are different. The Exit 126 project, that was developed by VDOT using one of their consultants. So they've been involved in that study through the whole process, and it's now at the Federal Highway Administration for review. So we would be able to simply move forward with a comprehensive plan amendment to update our tables and our map reflecting the change. The other project, the connector road, that at this point is simply a concept road that's a line on a map. So VDOT will require that we go through their Chapter 527 traffic impact analysis review in order to provide an update to the comprehensive plan. So what we're seeking permission from the board for this evening is to move forward, spend some time and effort studying this project, pulling together a traffic impact analysis, providing it to VDOT for that traffic study review, and then at that point moving forward with a comprehensive plan amendment.
Thank you very much. Questions? Mr. Trampy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The connector road, are the two property owners on board in negotiations? Where does that, are they aware of it? Where does that stand?
Well, I believe they've been approached, and I to the extent that they're on board with it, I can't say positively that they're on board with it, but they have been approached, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Cibola?
Yeah, for us to move forward from this point, are we looking at any significant costs, or this is all in-house staff? This is a new process for me, so.
Yes, we would be able to pull together the information for the 527 traffic impact analysis in-house and provide that in-house, yes.
Thank you.
Part of the reason to bring this forward is in the Transportation Committee a while back we had discussed future planning and getting a lot of plans on the books so that we're not playing catch up with what is happening. And part of what this road does is, number one, it utilizes the Spotsylvania Parkway that was proffered to the county to the tune of almost $30 million, because currently right now it ends at a couple of two-way or two-lane roads. And so we can utilize it to what it was built for, which was at that time a connector road for the southern part of the county, or the southern part of the growth area. Number two, what it would also do is connect, as we have talked with the planning study that's coming off the IMR, is the connection between Spotsylvania Parkway, or I'm sorry, Spotsylvania Avenue down to Germana Point, which then, when all of this is pieced together, you basically will have an internal causeway that will go through the county, allowing people to go from Lafayette Boulevard down and around and take you over to Gordon, and eventually Gordon is slated to be 4-laned up to Route 3. So you'll be able to come in from Route 3 West down to Gordon and loop all the way around through the county over to Lafayette. So that's part of the planning for future. And as Dan had stated, that Smith Station Road was $65 million, and that was $2005. So I'm sure that it's gone up since then. And so we looked at what would be the best use of money for the future to disrupt people's lives and cost a lot more money, or could we shift it to the south that really doesn't open up any growth simply because you have wetlands and you have national park to the south. So you're not opening up a new southern terminus for the primary settlement district, but what you're actually doing is connecting our roadways and giving people a straight shot to get through and around the county. So with that, I would like to make a motion to move ahead because we still have to go through the planning commission and we have to come back for a public hearing. So this is a lengthy process that I would like to start moving now. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bencala.
Yes, sir. This will be your resolution to adjourn in the closed meeting. Whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors desires to adjourn in the closed meeting for discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically property in the Lee Hills and the Livingston Magisterial District. And whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors desires to adjourn in the closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, specifically discussion concerning ATFD LLC and all versus the Board of Supervisors of Spotsylvania County. And whereas pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23711A3 and A7, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matters.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Six yes.
Yes, sir. This will be return to open meeting resolution. Whereas the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.23712D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Spotsylvania County Board of Supervisors hereby returns to open meeting and certifies by roll call vote that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in a meeting to convene in a closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in closed meeting.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Trampy.
Aye.
Mr. Sabula.
Aye.
Ms. Heidig.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Mr. Taylor, you have one item.
One item of new business, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and that is an invitation. This is for December 14th at 11:30 a.m. The Virginia Department of Veterans Services, this is not the federal VA, this is the State Department of Veterans Services, is opening a Fredericksburg area office at Lees Hill North at 10300 Spotsylvania Avenue, Suite 290 in Spotsylvania County. Again, that's December 14th at 11:30 a.m. Governor McAuliffe will be here. This is a very big deal for our area veterans and very big deal for the State Department of Veterans Services. And we'll be there and hope you will be too.
Thank you. Any other new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, safe travels, and see you in 2 weeks.